Hi, everyone, and welcome to our board meeting workshop. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And now I would like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Here we go. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. All right, Barb, roll call, please.
Mrs. Filipiak.
I am here.
Mr. Klein is absent at this time. Mrs. Lukey.
Here.
Mrs. McDonald.
Here.
And Mr. Martin is attending the high school girls basketball game at this time. And Mr. Miller is unable to attend the work session. Dr. Warren.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like a motion for approval of this February 8th, 2021 work session agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, perfect. And then over to you, Mr. Darga, for board work session.
Very good. Good evening, everybody. And again, welcome to the Allen Park Public Schools Board Work Session. This evening is our second edition. We are second time meeting for High Impact School Governance. It's developing an effective superintendent board team. With us this evening as our presenters, Dr. Leonard Rezmirski. He's Superintendent Support Administrator for Wayne Risa, as well as David Purnell is a HISG Toolkit Consultant at this time. And again, both Leonard and David joined us last month. They're the second work session this evening for our board team. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Leonard and Dave. And welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And welcome, board. Again, we're delighted to be with you. I can tell you that the most fervent question I heard tonight when folks at the county learned I would be working with the Allen Park board and superintendent, you all might have inside information on this question I couldn't answer. Given Tom Brady's success from U of M, how come the Lions didn't draft him 15 years ago? And I said, I think I know the people who might have an inside answer to that, but I'm not sure. All right, so I hope you all received, because we just got it literally in the snowbank on Thursday night, and Mike was kind enough to pick it up on Friday, your third MASA booklet on the school code, which we want to just cover briefly. But our, again, format is to make sure that if there are any board questions in any of those four booklet categories, we're in a position to either have an answer for you, look into the answer you're asking for or issue, or redirecting it in such a way. And again, as we stated at the first meeting, one of your great resources is obviously the superintendent and his connection with your district attorney, with Wayne County RISA, Randy Liepa, MASA, MASB. I mean, the sources are there that we constantly stress. Don't hesitate to use them. That's why they're there. That's why you're supporting them by your membership and your involvement. So you can't think of a question that someone doesn't have an answer to that can help you. So with that, again, given our meeting time, and to be respectful of that because you'll be going into your board meeting, we will be brief to the point on items 2 and 3 so that we're sure if you have any questions, Dave and or I would be in a position to answer them in light of what we started a week or so ago. So with that, let me turn over the first one to Dave on the Surviving Your First Year booklet, if there were issues. Dave?
Yeah, hi, good evening. It's good to see you all again. Even though that first booklet that you received, Surviving Your First Year, is really important for first year board members, I think it's also not a bad review for veteran board members. And as I went through it, there were things that triggered for me, things that it's important to think about as you're a board member. So It's not a bad review for veteran board members, and certainly for new board members. I think it's important to go through it and get a sense of what it's like to be a board member. Saying that, first of all, let me thank each and every one of you for being a board member. These are not easy jobs, as you probably already figured out if you're new, and especially during this time. These are challenging times for a lot of organizations, but I think particularly for school boards, because you're kind of stuck in the middle of a lot of opinions about how the district should run, when should we reopen, how do we do things that are different and yet retain kind of the community feel that I know is important to Allen Park and to all of you as board members. And so thank you for your service, first of all, because I think it's challenging, but it is important. It's an important position to have for a school district, especially a board that functions and oversees the district in a positive way that really concentrates on the outcome that you're looking for. And that is the success of all your students in Allen Park. And so with that, I think some of the important highlights of that overview of being a board member is a reminder that, you know, your charge is to set direction for the school district and to set goals for the school district. It's up to the superintendent and his team to make sure that they're striving to get those goals accomplished and to communicate to board members how the progress is going. And for you, it's to monitor the progress, to see what is being successful. And if it's not, what kind of things can we do to make sure that our goals are at least moving in the right direction? Saying that, we all know that you're not going to be hitting a home run on every one of those. That sometimes goals are difficult, sometimes they're challenging, and sometimes they take more time than we would like them to be. And sometimes, quite frankly, you fail, you don't make it. But I think the important thing for a board and the superintendent and his team is to really honestly look at what you're trying to accomplish. And if it's not working, have an honest discussion of how you can change it to make it work. And with those failures, remember, there's always learning going on. You can always take something out of a failure and make your organization even better than it was in spite of that failure. And I think that's kind of the mindset I would hope a lot of boards have as they go into these challenging times. You're not going to hit a home run every time, but as you dissect what worked and what didn't work, there's always ways to improve it. You know, it's up to the superintendent. It's up to Mike to run the daily, day-to-day operation of a complex organization like that. But it's up to you to have that oversight and to do the right work as board members. And, you know, I want to congratulate you for taking on the high governance model that we're presenting, because it really does allow for doing the right work. As we discuss these tonight and in the future, again, the research is showing this is the right work to get accomplished. And so by taking this on, you are already following a path that is going to make a difference, we believe, in how effective your Allen Park School District is going to be. With that, part of the key piece that board members always turn to, and it's obviously a big part of being a board member, is the board meetings. You know, how do you operate at the board level? And I think the booklet gives a pretty good outline of what your expectations are from a board meeting perspective. You know, part of that is making sure that the agenda is meeting the needs of the board and the school district so that you're accomplishing those goals and it's embedded within those board meetings as you go through those. There's a lot of tedious things you have to do in those board meetings, but I think it's always important to sit back and look at the overall agenda and say, are we doing the right work again? Are we having the discussions that really make a difference in our school district and the direction we want it to go in? And that's on every board member to have that mindset to go in and say, we're here to make improvements, and let's reflect with that board agenda as the superintendent and the board president creates it, that it's meeting the community's needs, and if you have issues, it's meeting your needs also. And with that, I think the other important thing is to understand how that Open Meetings Act works, and Len's going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think it's really important you understand what those guidelines say, what the limits are, and also when you go into closed session, as a new board member, you have to understand what the rules are and what are the guidelines for a closed session. That's important because there's issues of confidentiality, when and how you can discuss things, and you need to follow those. I know at our last meeting, there was a question about conferring with board members on an issue when you're not in a board meeting. It's a big red flag. You have to be careful, and it's easy to do. The other one that's easy to do that is fairly new is email communication. Again, you need to be clear on what you're doing when you're emailing other board members and discussing issues, because those emails become public information that can be pulled and looked at if anybody accuses you of discussing issues and you're not part of that Open Meetings Act and you're trying to go around it. Even if it's not purposeful, if somebody has an issue, they can pull your emails and review those in terms of whether or not you're following the Open Meetings Act. So that's important to do that. The other issue I think for board members is to know the bylaws and any guidelines you have amongst the board. It's important that everyone be on the same page as board members about how we operate as a board, and it's best to have those written, and it's important you understand those bylaws. So I would urge you to spend some time, if you haven't, to look at the bylaws and understand what those bylaws say and what the guidance is for your board. A little bit about superintendent communication. I always appreciated it that communication was a two-way street between the board members and myself. I always welcome phone calls. I always welcome emails from board members. And I appreciated greatly when there was an issue that a board member identified in the community and would give me a heads up as to a potential issue that was in the community that sometimes I had not heard. And it was very helpful to understand what that issue was before it became a bigger issue and it landed on my desk. The other one that, as you're talking about board meetings, I also appreciated if a board member knew there was an issue he or she was going to bring up at a board meeting, that they called me and gave me a heads up and said, look, Dave, there's an item on the consent agenda tonight that I'm not comfortable with. I'm going to ask that it be pulled. And that's certainly your prerogative, but it was nice to have a heads up and understand what the issue was before you go to that public board meeting. It just made it much more, and I could respond to that issue much better if I had a heads up and I could do some research about what the issue was. And a lot of times we could solve it even before the board meeting so that a board member was comfortable with whatever the issue was. I also made sure that if I had issues, that I had the board members know what those issues were. And my goal was always to get it to you before it got to your grocery cart in the grocery store. Because if there's an issue, the public will stop you and say, hey, did you hear about this? I did not want my board members to be caught in that position. I wanted them to know what was going on. As a matter of fact, especially when there was a crisis, and you never know when something big is going to happen. But I made sure that I had some of the secretaries in central office had phone numbers of all my board members so that if I was tied up in a crisis, at least they could call board members and give you a heads up of what the issue was before you started getting slammed with phone calls about what was going on. And so no matter what it was, we would make sure board members had a heads up and were prepared to respond to people that were emailing them or calling them. The other one, and there's not enough time, but for new board members, I think one of the most challenging ones is school finance. This booklet gives a pretty good outline on the school finance, but I would urge you to go through that. But school finance is a complicated issue, and it takes a long time to really be somewhat versed in all the issues that are around school finance. So take some time to do that. If you have questions, Mike is a great resource, I'm sure, or somebody from his staff can certainly answer questions about school finance. But from the public's perspective, you will probably get a lot of calls and questions about what's going on with school finance. So make sure you understand those. And finally, community ties. One of the big issues that I think it's important for board members to understand is, you know who the key people are in your community. You've been there. A lot of you have been in Allen Park for many, many years and know who are the important people in your community and how you communicate with them. That's a great resource for an administration and a board of education and for the superintendent, because if there are issues again, or if you're going for a bond issue or whatever the communication is, it's important that you are in touch with those people and those members of the community to move forward. And so that's an important resource that you all should have. Who are those key people in the community that you can identify and move forward? Any questions? Okay, Len.
Okay. All right. I will now move you through the new book you just received and be stealth in both of these to get to the HISG. But as David mentioned these are very important items, and we have found from our experience, these are topics in these 4 booklets, and it's related action that board members have asked us to look into. So no, for example, there is no one way to do it, but we have been privileged to learn from a number of other districts in style and method and delivery what worked for them. And although we can't say, well, gee, Allen Park, you ought to try XYZ boards and districts procedures, they're just examples. Again, as we've said to you in the first meeting, there is no cookie cutter design on all this research. And this is after 15 years of looking into this and now working on it with real school districts in Wayne County. However, what we do have is access to sharing some of the best thinking in that topic or this topic that a board may choose to want to adopt. So if you will please follow along with me very briefly, the rather engaged book, because it is legally and constitutionally your responsibility, the school code, the revised school code information. This booklet indicates only 103 of the written constitutional areas that you are responsible for. So let me draw your attention to page 6, 3rd paragraph, 2nd sentence. Almost middle of that, there's one key word, shall. Any revised code you see that says shall, you are involved. You don't have much of an option. There may be issues you don't deal with per se, but if it does come your way, you shall do something as that code indicates. Let me move you now to page 11, dealing with, and I'll cite the number so you can see where I'm speaking. At the bottom, 380.6634, it says ISD, but it also refers to local boards, and that's conflict of interest. And I can give you the best example from my experience. When we were purchasing, it happened to be in the bidding process, which is another aspect in this book. You have to do competitive bidding over a certain dollar threshold every year as established by the state. We were purchasing vehicles for the district. I believe, if I recall correctly, 4 of them. And it happened to be the best and the least expensive was a Ford dealership. One of our board members had worked for Ford for 20 some plus years. He recused himself from that board vote because he considered it a conflict of interest, even though our district business manager with him extrapolated how much would he get theoretically, and it was something in the neighborhood of 0.6 and 2. Well, but the point was that we know he wasn't profiting by the board's decision, but his interest and his resolution was, however, the impropriety would be in the perception of it, not so much in the monetary value. So I share that with you because we hear that question tied especially with competitive bidding from other districts more than any other in here, and that's the site area for you to go to. If you would go to page 16, one that has taken an interesting turn in the last decade, and I'm speaking of 380.1219, early warning. If a district has a positive general fund balance of less than 5%, it's called Hello Uncle. You will have the State Department involved with Mr. Darga and the board on numerous issues, depending on the severity of the fund balance loss and what you'll have to put up with. We constantly say to everyone, I think everyone knows this, your best goal is that you should never dip below 5%. Now, here's the irony in the last decade. We were criticized severely, not quite 10 years ago, around there, for having a nickel over the balanced budget because that was considered the taxpayers' dollars, and somehow we were hoarding it in some type of a special account, and we were doing something nefarious with that money. Furthest from the truth. Every corporation that the Superintendent's Association and groups and boards checked with, there wasn't a corporation company in our country that would agree that they would go broke, dead even, year in and year out to spend all the profit they had. No one operates in their right mind that way. So here's an irony of the twist that occurred. And now, as a number of you know, there's a number of districts that are really heavily involved with the state because their budget can't break 5%, and they are stuck with all those requirements from the state. I don't believe that's a problem for Allen Park. I would just encourage you to not go in that zone at all. It's a minefield. If you would then look at page, literally the next page, dealing with the employment of the superintendent, 380-1229, as you well know, that's the only ineffective person you're hiring. Your district, like many, many others, does the appropriate ceremonial aspect of hiring X number of new teachers, building administrators, central office, staff in general. It all depends the depth and breadth of your involvement with that. But in truth, you're hiring the superintendent. That's the go-to person. That's the position you're sponsoring, if you will. All the rest of it comes to him or her in their role for all the other positions they have. But this spells out the role, the hiring, the notifications, non-renewal. It dips into further language on the evaluation, and I know you're well aware of all of that. Okay, if you would now, because there's a treasure trove of issues here that we would leave, again, for any specific ones you want us to respond to or look into further, we'll be glad to do that. But let me draw your attention to the last page, page 35. This is the one that most boards we've experienced. It's somewhat an aha moment. If you look at 380.1804, neglecting or refusing to perform your duties, that aspect literally goes to a guilty of a misdemeanor. And it doesn't say, frankly, that the superintendent, it's the elected board members. If you also go down and look at the competitive bidding, 380.1815, which we just talked about, if there's malfeasance or intentional violations of this, you'll notice the first batch is it's a guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by fine of not more than 10% of the cost of the project involved, or more than 1 year, or both. They're pretty stiff penalties. We hope to believe that's never your walk in life or experience at all. I am not aware of, except in one instance, where this became a problem with the board in Wayne County. So that's a quick and down and dirty. There's an awful lot in here that we would be happy, again, to come back to and discuss with you, but you need to have the time to go through it. And again, the great resources you have with the superintendent, your district attorney, Wayne County RESA, MASA, MASB is replete with people who are experts in this area. We feel these booklets become effectively your board library. This is the information bank you need to feel comfortable with, not, that late night Saturday and you're wondering, I heard this term, somebody brought this up. You have a resource or set of resources to go back to besides, calling Mike. All right, next one. Unless there's questions, I'll keep moving sprightly here because of time. You have the latest edition from MASB. Again, well done. It's the 13th edition of the Open Meetings Act. or commonly known as OMA. If I can draw your attention to page 5. The issue points out here that the intent of this document is done by Brad Banasak and his staff, which are really extremely very trustworthy individuals I have found all the time, easy access to and with quality information. And they did this last update, I believe, September 19th, 2019. So it's as current as we have it. The interesting aspect here, as Dave alluded to a little bit earlier, that boards tend, in some cases, and yes, in our county, have waxed and waned on how they interpret it, especially with the new technology. And you have to be very careful with that. You can't, give you an example, you can't from a very difficult board meeting have been in closed session and then on Saturday, 1 or 2 board members share the information at a local eatery on Saturday morning. You're wanting to have legal violations filed. You're wanting to have huge financial setbacks. One example is indicated in this book, and it couldn't be any more dramatic. When the University of Michigan Board of Regents went out to secure the applicants in the process for the presidency, they literally violated the Open Meetings Act and were found out. Now, and it's listed in here in the book. I believe the tune of their violation was $500,000. But my point is, how many more lawyers do you think they have that they couldn't have spotted that before they did what they did? I mean, it doesn't take much to go off the reservation on these issues, and it's very important to stay with it within tune. If you go specifically, and well, let me also point out page 8 gives you 10 of the most frequently asked questions of school board members throughout the state. For example, number 1, when can a school board go into closed session? And the list is literally from page 34 to 41. The 10 categories are listed there and spelled out. Number 2, may a school board use a secret ballot to make a decision? No, you cannot do that. Number 4, may a school board meet in a retreat outside the district's boundaries? Well, maybe, and this is kind of an interesting one that's somewhat more delicate. We advise boards that there must be, beside your board place, the central office or a building in the district, you can go as exotic as you can use Wayne County RESA Superintendent Library on 33500 Van Born Road. Now, that may seem that exotic, but it's still within the county and anyone can come and go there. I can tell you the number of meetings we've had with boards there. I can't recall when a citizen from that district came. But nonetheless, as opposed to the board is sequestering and going to California, Hawaii, Cozumel, no. Those issues and days are gone, long gone. And you don't want to be in that category. And that's one of the issues that gets into that question. Number 6, for example, may a citizen address a school board about a complaint against a teacher during a public comment? Yes, they can. Now, one of the aspects here that we would be glad to discuss and work with you is a style in which how the board handles at a public meeting, not only how many minutes is a citizen allowed to speak, but the format that's well laid out before, maybe literally behind the back page of the board agenda meeting, where you go to with your questions. And if you aren't prepared for that, again, I don't like surprises is an apt title. You have a strategy between the superintendent and the board chair or the board president of that session and topic, how you deflect that to not show, well, we don't care to deal with that. We're not listening to that, asked and answered, none of those combative phrases. There's a real style, and I think your board leans in that direction from what I've learned. And we have got examples of how you can keep sharpening that skill to how you handle it. And the public generally says, boy, they didn't have the answer on the spot, but I felt really invited to make my presentation about the sole issue about my child or my grandchild, and you all gave me the time and attention and listened and deferred it for further action to the superintendent. He, in this case, will follow up within 48 hours. The board will be informed of 24 hours after that, and we'll all know where we stand on it, as opposed to combative. And we've had examples in the county and in the state where there have been some real raucous events to where police had to be brought in because it got completely out of hand. And this booklet spells out some examples of how you can look at handling that. All right, and again, behind each chapter, for example, if you go to page 16, you'll see on the top there, each chapter has what they refer to as a quick review. That's a real crib method to go right back at the topic, and then you can dipstick back into it if you need to. But each one of the chapters is well versed in that direction and that guideline. As I mentioned earlier, if you go to page 36, you'll see the title towards the middle of the page, Legitimate Purposes for Closed Meetings. It spells out each of the categories that you can use and choose. Again, you have ample time in that discussion with the superintendent, district attorney if appropriate, or any other resource to make sure you're valid on the reason why you're going into that, quote, closed session. And then on page 41, it points out the illegal uses of closed session and the number of there. And then again, chapter 6, quick review on page 42. David also mentioned general meetings. There's also regulations under the OMA under committee meetings. And again, some districts have there's up to 7 that I believe is the most I've seen of subcommittees that boards operate versus committee of the whole. And there's a unitarian approach to looking at committee of the whole versus X number of subcommittees. And I've lived through both. And I can tell you that when we had all those multiple individual subcommittees, which were very good, but time consuming, how many evenings can you have board members come and other administrative staff, et cetera there. And when we converted, honestly, to I wasn't a big champion of it at the time. I'm an absolute convert now to how to control and deal with committee of the whole, where each committee had, when they met, and they still do once a month, they have a time slot that they have to rigidly follow. And then there's a 5-minute break for the next committee, if it has to be held, meets. And within one evening, starting at 6, we were able to conclude by no later than 9:30. 10 was the outside long frame, but every committee was heard. So I would offer you that, and not knowing specifically your intent in areas, but there are options throughout the county, again, with subcommittees versus committee of the whole. This book speaks to that. All right, again, as I'd mentioned in the previous book, if you would go with me to page 65. Let me draw your attention to 15.272. So just so that you're clear, these acts and these laws in our Constitution are not for the faint of heart. This is not, oh gosh, by golly, as I mentioned to you, the U of M one. There are many other districts that have served penalties or received penalties in the violation of the Open Meetings Act. It's not something that you should, and I don't think you do, take lightly and think, well, no one's paying attention, we'll just kind of rifle this through. That's the first time you made a mistake. The next is when you receive the letter for the meeting on the Open Meetings Act or a FOIA request from the media. Then you're now up and running, and you don't want to go there. I can tell you, you don't want to go there. That's just not a land that's worth your time and effort. You put in enough time and effort. You have the best interest for the community and all the students. You just don't want to dipstick into this stuff. All right, I know that's quick, but I need to be parsimonious to move on with the time we have. So Dave, if you'd cover the last of the 4.
Yeah, real quick, because I know time is of the essence. The last one is telling our story, the communication guide for school boards. And this one has some really good information about what a key communicator you are for the school board and in the community. And people are going to listen to you just because they assume you have all the inside info in the school district. And you really need to be prepared to think about how you're going to communicate with all of your constituents across the Allen Park School District. You probably have a pretty good idea of what the hot button issues are, and you really should be prepared to answer some of those sometimes difficult questions that you have to answer. But at the same time, you also have to be ready to tell the story of the Allen Park School District. You have to be a proactive storyteller and tell the good things that are going on in Allen Park. And it's challenging right now because there's so many stories about school districts and about education in general. And you have to keep in mind that 75% of the people in your community don't have children in the school district, but they are still interested in what's going on with the school. They want to know, is the school district being run well? Are my tax dollars being wisely spent for the education of students? And how is that being done? And so it's really a good idea to sit down and think a little bit about what communication you want to have when you run into a constituent in the drugstore and there's a chat about, well, how's Allen Park Schools doing? What do you think about Allen Park? And it really is a big plus if you have in mind the issues you want to bring up to them about what Allen Park is doing. One of the chapters here talks about preparing your elevator speech. And an elevator speech is something that you capture an audience in an elevator and you've got 2 or 3 minutes to have a say with them about what you want to bring across. That's an important piece because you're going to run into a lot of people with not a lot of time. And you need to think about how you're going to frame Allen Park. On your website, right on the front page, is uncompromising commitment to excellence. That's a great quote. That's a great mission statement for your school district. I would urge you, if you haven't done this yet, though, to think about examples of what you have done that reflect that mission statement. What uncompromising commitments have you seen in your school district that you can use as examples? Because a lot of people will glaze over if you just start talking about statements and that. But if you can tell a real life story about something that you've seen or something that you've experienced or something that relates back to that uncompromising commitment that Allen Park has to its students, then that's the message that people will walk away with and they will remember. And as much as statistics are important, and you might want to throw those out sometimes, I think the storytelling part is always very powerful. People will walk away and remember that. So I would urge you to start thinking about, if you haven't, start thinking about what examples you can use and what stories do you want to tell about what Allen Park is doing. What have you done for the students? What have you done for staff? And the other piece is think about how you're going to communicate both with inside and outside. A lot of times we spend a lot of time thinking about how we're going to communicate to the community, non-parents, parents, but we don't sometimes take the time or the commitment to talk about how do we communicate to our employees. And you as a board member are a key piece in those employee communications. Teachers may stop you. A custodian may have a question for you. And it's important that they feel like they're part of the system, that you're part of the system, and that you welcome their questions or their comments because their voices are important too, and they want to be heard. Sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you're going through negotiations and that those kind of communications have become challenging. But I think if you lay the groundwork of good relationships outside of those times when you're in front of the negotiating table and you establish some personal communication, it'll go a long way in the long term when things do go south, that they say, no, you know what, I know that board member and that's not that person's intention. They're just looking out for the kids of the school district and what's going on. So again, that whole communication piece is important to think about. Spend some time on it. Think about going back to key communicators in your Allen Park community. Who are those important people and how do you engage them? You know, do you have opportunity to engage some of those business leaders, some of the thought people that have a lot of connections with other people in your community? Those are the kind of people you want to be zeroed in on and bringing into the conversation for Allen Park Public Schools, because they do have an interest. Business people are interested in how well the district is running because that will bring people into your district. If you have a great reputation, just talk to real estate agents. They will be thrilled to have a communication with the board and the superintendent about what they perceive as the pluses and minuses, and you can communicate with them with your story about how great the school district is and how it's welcoming to all kids. And you know, we would love to have people move into Allen Park and come to our schools, and this is why. So again, think about that story. If you haven't, think about what you want to tell your community, and it will go a long way, I think, in the long term. You have a bond issue coming up, I noticed on your website. You know, great time to have that kind of dialogue.
Right.
Any questions?
Okay, then moving along, and thanks, Dave, for all of that. We'd also point out that we have examples in each of those communication zones for you to look at and consider. As Dave mentioned, with your real estate folks, we now have districts who are doing annual coffee and donuts with the real estate folks and giving them a blueprint of what neighborhoods feed what elementary school, which middle school, the high school, and then some demographics on the success rate of graduates. And there's a whole treasure trove of styles and ways to do this to share with you. Now, if you're looking at it, please look at number 3 on our agenda, High Impact School Government, HISG. Again, to say this, there is no cookie cutter model. All this work, like your brethren in 11 districts, this is your model. This ends up being the Allen Park Public Schools model in the areas you want to work on. This isn't you're adopting it from somebody else. You're imposing this. We have examples of quality work, but we've asked permission to share that, and the boards have done that. But a number of the boards who have done this have been with us now 3 and 4 years. So they've worked diligently on how they wanted to turn things dramatically around. And at the same time, in fair disclosure, it is our optimal hope that after we've been with you for a while, you really know how to use this so successfully, other than dipsticking for us to come into a meeting to double check things. You know what to do, and you know how your goals are written and your directions is going. And as Dave mentioned, the kind of gold standard items you're going to emphasize: student growth and learning, academic achievement by scores, competitive ranking in the county, in the state, number of graduates, and that you each personally know the 5 or 6 kids who didn't graduate, and the superintendent can say when that they will graduate. That human touch is altogether what is so desperately needed in the work that you're doing, that we're all doing. So if I'm going to draw your attention quickly to this, you already had, we walked through the core responsibilities, the 6 of them. You are familiar with that. That's laid out there. The purpose of this is laid out there. The 8 vital behaviors, again, starting with why and core values, and then the governance model, which blends the why and the core, all the way down to handling independent working culture, to emphasis on the positive and focus on the possible, are all part of the vital behaviors that were designed when a number of us worked on all of this. Each, again, is constructed the same way. There's a definition. There are 3 developmental levels. If you think of good, better, best, we can dip more into that. Then you look at a list of strategic ideas we shared, both for the superintendent and the board, and then quick tip starts. And I'm sure you can add a great treasure trove, and we would love to hear them because we add them to all the work we have from each board. So, but each is constructed under the same format. There is no divergence of difference. It's the topical area. And there is no longitudinal fact of a process here. You don't have to start at number 1 and then trudgingly go to 2, 3 to 4. There's none of that. No board in our experience has ever done that. Most have started somewhere else and then back chain to something else because that was what was most current and pressing in that district. as Dave mentioned, your upcoming bond issue. For a number of districts, that's where we focused on in areas to surround that with effort that was related to that vital behavior. Okay, so questions you may have on the HISG document, because our big question is the discussion on if the board's had the opportunity to consider a vital behavior to start with.
So a couple of our board members did get back with me. A couple were still looking over the documents. It kind of ranged for a couple different people. Item number 4 was popular, and number 5 were popular. I had one board member. They really had, they really enjoyed the 3 different topics, 4, 5, 6. Did not mind where to start, but they felt those 3 really met the need. Another board member felt number 4 was really important to them, and then one felt number 5 was really important to them. So it's one of those that we're a little bit still mixed, and we can definitely, kind of bring that together. And we have a couple board members yet who are still going to share what they felt was theirs.
That's a very good response, Mike, to my question, and that is a fairly common one, 4 or 5. I mean, not absolutely. Even boards who have started with 2 and 7, I can tell you they automatically come back to 4 and 5. And that's just the way it is. I mean, there's no value added or any, you get a gold star on your forehead if you selected that one. The issue is that's where you are, and that's what you want to work on, and that's what we will wrap ourselves around with you. But it has to be with the team of 8 concept, the 7 board members and the superintendent consensus on the one to start. So we know we're all moving with you in the same direction, and we will bring all of our resources around that. And then this isn't take the developmental levels. This isn't us giving you the best, good, better, best concepts. We can add and delete with the best of them, and we've got examples from a number of other places to share. But we can only start and move forward based on Alan Park's good, better, best examples of progress, not something we made up. Okay, if that's clear, or questions there with that.
And again, this is open up to any board member who may have any questions about this or need further explanation on any of the 8 vital behaviors that are outlined. So if you have a question or need some clarity or would like to talk about it, please feel free to unmute and ask any questions you may have.
I do have a question. As I was going through these, let's just say, for example, it kind of honed in on vital behavior number 4. But then as I was looking at the other ones, I could see a legitimate way for incorporating, communication skills, some of the other vital behaviors in with that one. I mean, is that kind of,
yes,
and me, I mean, it made it real. I mean, put it in a real context for what we're trying to do.
Yes.
Is that?
That's absolutely true. What we've experienced is, let me be concrete to the example using that one. Many of the boards here and around the county and other places we've worked with, once we get into the whole area of how are you defining your goals, be it a strategic plan or board approved long-term district goals and action steps, once we get into that with the board and the superintendent, one thing leads to another. And oftentimes it centers around how are we communicating these results that the board adopted? Did you have a forum where citizens could come to and offer comments back and forth? Were the staff engaged months in advance before the board brought it up for final adoption at a board meeting? And in there then spells out the effective design of more dynamic communications. Here's where the board is, perfect, no, but struggling with the best of them, trying to achieve this for all students, no exception, and moving forward. And here are the standards we're attempting to achieve. And that can be, and I alluded to it just a moment ago, with other districts where they've gotten into this, they looked at where their district ranked, if you will, in the county on achievement, MSTEP, NWEA, SAT, ACT, etc., graduation rates, the gold standards as we all do. Well, what a couple of boards have done is they've established in their own discussions, okay, we've looked at all the evidence that our staff have brought forth, all the evidence we can get from the county and the state, and let's just say arbitrarily, 33 districts in Wayne County. And let's say and I don't know this for sure, I'm just using an example. Let's say Allen Park is 16th in the county. Well, if that were true and that were a modicum of an issue that you wanted to get into, let's say that the board, after careful discussion with staff, looking at your well-being financially, your academic prowess, your structure, your scaffolding for curriculum and instruction, let's say that you established a goal with everyone's eyes wide open. In 3 years, we want to be in the top 10. And in 5 years, we want to be in the top 5. And oh, by the way, in the 5th year, we want to be in the top 25 in the state. All of a sudden, and these are real districts, you create a synergy within the district staff. We know where we're going. It's not any port in a storm. We know the direction we're going in. And now we're talking about how we're consistently rowing in that direction with evidence of students' unbridled learning and achievement. Now, are there setbacks? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I can tell you that I can personally tell you the districts involved have never looked back at making that the goal, because then everybody internal to the operation of the district for the community knows the path you're taking, and then so do the parents. And ultimately, and most emphatically, so do the students. This school district cares that much about me, they want me to achieve at all costs.
Okay, so as a follow-up, so then if there's setbacks, failures, I think was a term you used, then we go back, we reassess, we perhaps reevaluate the curriculum, the scaffolding, all things, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was picturing.
Dave may offer some comments.
It's a continuous process on all of these. It's going to be a continuous rotation of where is our goals? How are we going to measure them? Did we accomplish them? And if we didn't, then you talk about why didn't we, and how can we improve it for the next cycle? And it just keeps going. And as you can see, as you look on all these critical behaviors, they're going to bleed out into other areas. You know, you can't put number 4 together without a great communication plan to staff and community about setting that goal and getting input into what's important for student achievement. Is it simply our SAT scores, or is there something more we want to accomplish with students? Let's have that discussion with the community. A great way to engage the community in something that's really important, student achievement, but how are we going to do that, and how are we going to define success for Allen Park Public Schools?
Right.
And then have you ever seen anybody tie that in with trying to pass a bond? Because I think that's where everybody buys in. We want these kids to be accomplished, right?
Right.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely hitting one of the hearts of the matter. How are you exhibiting to the staff, to the community, the parents, how the board is exercising its best collective thinking on the use of time, talent, and treasure? You can capture and harness that. You don't have to be perfect. And yes, if you indicated, because it's true for all of us, you can have setbacks and failures, but you weren't dishonest in the direction you were heading for student learning and achievement. And therefore, as you get quarterly and then annual reports, you're publishing that. You're offering people to come to these meetings to offer comments to the board about the direction it's heading in the best use of its finance, matched to support the goals and objectives that support student learning and achievement at all levels, no exceptions. And that's where we've seen turnarounds. And that's why the goals are written in 3 to 5 year sequences. You can't do this all by a year from now and good luck. It takes time, and you create a synergy of a legacy, and you pass it down to the other people who are going to follow you on the board. But that's the message from Allen Park Public Schools to the Allen Park community. We're not falling apart like a cheap suit, and we know where we're going.
You've got a great one. I looked at your bond issue. You're proposing to put up STEM labs. You know,
Yep.
That's a great one. When you establish that, you know, we want our students in Allen Park to have absolutely the best education, and we think we need to emphasize STEM, and this is the way we're going to accomplish that. I think for the public, it makes sense. We want to make sure these students are prepared for the future, and STEM labs are a critical piece to preparing Allen Park kids to go out in the world and be successful. I mean, that's an easy argument. And especially if you establish that as one of your key progress monitoring of that goal, that's an easy one to sell, I think. And safety and security. You got bad roofs. We can't do education with bad roofs. We can't be running around dodging raindrops while we're trying to teach science.
Right.
One of the best slogans that two districts adopted in general sense was, we operate safe and healthy environments where learning thrives. You talk about elevator speeches, that kind of a message that you as a board individually and collectively keep giving. Perfect, no. This problem came up, we didn't see it coming. Here's how we're protecting against it. But here's the direction we are collectively moving forward to for the success and well-being of the Allen Park community.
Gentlemen, I appreciate it. I know we're getting a little short on time. It's almost 6:55. Yep. I want to make sure I can give everybody just a quick break. Real quick, Leonard, you and I can touch base along with Dave on our next steps. So I will definitely be reaching out to you to kind of figure out, okay, what happens next and where do we go? We appreciate your time today, gentlemen. It was an outstanding presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck at your board meeting.
Thank you.
Board members, we just have a couple of minutes, so feel free to go ahead and turn off mute and turn off your.
I need to.
Adjourn. Sorry.
Do I have an emotion to adjourn?
Support.
All those in favor, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, Mike.
Okay.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Got just a couple.
Welcome to a virtual meeting of the Allen Park Board of Education. On January 22nd, 2021, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued an emergency order under MCL 333.2253, Gatherings and Face Mask Order, which prohibits indoor gatherings at non-residential venues except where no more than 10 persons from no more than 2 households are gathered. While there are some exceptions, a school board meeting is not one of them. This order is in effect from February 1 through February 21st of this year. On behalf of my colleagues, the board appreciates the high level of interest, passion, and input from the Allen Park School community. It is for these reasons our community continues to stay strong. Please continue to keep your focus on taking care of yourselves, your families, and each other. This evening, citizens who wish to express public comments may do so by accessing the online comment for district website. The homepage has a link that will lead you to the forum as well as to this evening's agenda. Your comments or questions pertaining to an agenda item will be read during item number 7. Comments or questions pertaining to non-agenda items will be read during item number 12. Comment forms will be accepted up until that time of the meeting. Prior to this meeting, board members and presenters ran a test of the system. Please note that no business took place. It was merely a technology test. And with the meeting called to order, I would ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you for that. If we could have a roll call, Ms. Zdrowski.
Mrs. Filipiak,
Here.
Mr. Klein,
I'm here.
Mrs. Lukey,
Present.
Mrs. McDonald,
I'm here.
Mr. Martin, I believe he is delayed at this time, Mr. Miller,
Here.
and Dr. Warren.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll seek approval of tonight's consent agenda items, which includes approval for this evening's agenda, approval of the January 11 organizational meeting minutes, January 20 special meeting minutes, January 25 work session, and regular meeting minutes. Approval of registers for January 25th, January 29th, and February 2nd, and approval of wire transfers from January 22nd through February 2nd.
Motion.
Support.
Okay, been moved and supported. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. President's communications, I have none at this time. Item number 6, reading of communications, Mrs. Flipiak.
I have none at this time, Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tefelsky, any citizens' comments pertaining to agenda items?
I have none at this time.
Okay, moving on to item 8, personnel. We'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Darga.
You're muted, Mike.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you. Personnel, employment services to be improved en masse. We are recommending that the individuals as listed be employed. The candidates were interviewed and recommended by committee. As appropriate, background checks have been conducted. Suggested motion that the recommendations for employment and services be approved by the board for the individuals as presented. Shade Atkinson, volunteer wrestling coach, Allen Park High School. Patricia Petty, food service, Allen Park High School. Kelly Shane, independence paraprofessional, Lindeman.
Motion.
Support.
Okay, been moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing and seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. 8B, personnel resignations, retirements. Mr. Darga.
We have received and accepted the following retirements and resignations. Kelsey Riley, lunch parapro, Benny, and Aaron Scroggins, bus driver, operations.
Okay, Moving on to 9A, old business, the extended COVID-19 learning plan. Mr. Darga.
Extended COVID-19 learning plan, confirm instruction and delivery plan for the next 30 days. Since the extended COVID-19 learning plan was approved, the board must meet to reconfirm delivery of instructions, solicit public comments on how instruction is going to be delivered, and publicly announce weekly two-way interaction rates every 30 days. At a special meeting held on January 20th, 2021, the board received updates and discussed the following topics in light of the state's goal to have all Michigan school districts offer an in-person learning option for students by March 1. An update was provided from the elementary and secondary hybrid committees. We explored our data resources utilizing the Wayne County data as opposed to focusing on Allen Park specific data or data derived from communities in which we have accepted students through the Schools of Choice program, as well as consideration for staff coming from multiple communities and counties. We explored our data threshold in regard to the positivity rate. The update from the Wayne County on status of staff vaccination had been shared when the project was on hold at that time. And ultimately, in an effort to simplify and accelerate a safe return of students to in-person learning and to sustain model that allows the students to attend 4 full days per week with a remote half day on Wednesdays, an implementation plan was discussed. The metric point in regard to the positivity rate was modified to below 7.5%. Consideration included reflection on the district safety initiatives implemented, as evidenced by the district receiving a 100% passing score in the Allen Park mitigation plan. The fact that this metric point is still within the medium risk range, which is 3 to 10, and that there had been no evidence of school-associated spread of the virus while in-person instruction was ongoing. The 7 consecutive day modification was based on the change from the CDC in December, setting new quarantine guidelines of 7 days with a 2 negative tests or a 10-day quarantine, which used to be with 14 days. As always, the student attendance and weekly engagement is a significant consideration. Although there were 2 students reported with a positive COVID result during the first week of in-person learning, given the timeline, both students had been exposed to the virus prior to returning to in-person learning and not school-associated. Staff vaccines provided to all staff who want one. Our first dose is tomorrow, February the 9th. We're extremely excited about that. January remote attendance rates and weekly engagement reports will be posted on the district's website's transparency page. Attendance rates from the February 1st through the first week in person, we are pleased to announce that overall the district rate ranged from 94.32% to 96.48%. Allen Park has moved from a risk level E to a community spread risk level of a D. Prior to resuming in-person instruction, all students were provided with the option to go in-person or virtual, which is Calvert Learning for the elementary, courseware grades 6 through 8, or Edgenuity grades 9 through 12. There was some movement between the options for in-person learning and virtual learning. The count is relatively consistent. And at this time, I'd like to share my screen. And hopefully you guys, this will pop up on your screens and you'll be able to see that. Very good. And this is something regarding the virtual school and class size. In previous board meetings, we've discussed the virtual school class sizes and the use of Allen Park teachers. And I wanted to make sure that not only our board members, but again, our citizens and community members, as well as staff members, had this information regarding, I wanted to share that the following information to show the steps that Allen Park Public Schools has taken to be sure that Allen Park students worked with Allen Park teachers for program and curriculum success while attending our virtual program. Here's a list of the AP teachers involved with the virtual program K through 12. Each teacher also has office hours, which are highlighted, but all of our AP teachers assist students as needed. When you look at the actual list, I don't think I need to read all the names, but the whole idea is that we've got course subject teachers in each area. For our secondary, we've got grades 6 through 8 covered, as well as 9 through 12 covered in science, math, social studies, and ELA. When you look down into the area of our elementary course subject teachers, each area has a course subject teacher available. We've got, again, 1 per grade level, and actually Young 5s and kindergarten has 2 different teachers. And again, their office hours are posted. I think it's important that our community realizes that, again, these services are provided by Allen Park Public Schools and have always been in place. So for those families who have chosen to go the virtual option, they are working with and have the ability to work with Allen Park teachers. These teachers are all available. There's office hours there, but again, through email, when we've had families or students reaching out with a question about the curriculum or needed help or assistance, these are their go-to people. And again, they've been in place ever since the program started. So I think that's some information that doesn't always get discussed. I know that we've got people out there that want to work with Allen Park staff, and that's a goal of theirs to have a remote option. And one of the things that we keep coming back to is we've provided Allen Park teachers in a virtual option. So I know that's been a discussion on with our board during our board meetings. And I want to make sure that I kind of highlighted some of that. I think it's important for our community to realize that all those people are in place. So when you start looking at the options that we provided in a remote option or virtual option, we've also met and we've done a lot of behind the scenes movements administratively as well as with our staff. Just this past week alone, we met at the high school level with middle school representation for secondary with Trenton Public Schools, and they hosted a real good meeting for us to talk about their program, how they run their program. I was able to meet with our entire crew from the middle school to high school. We had several teachers and administrators on there, and to discuss if that's a program that we felt would meet our needs. The program that is currently set up, we did not feel that remote option was something that we wanted to continue to look into with our current options available and our current attendance rates being as high as they are. So that's just a quick update on a little bit more of the virtual aspect and people that we have in place. And that meets the numbers that we have. We've currently have over 400 students. 402 students are currently enrolled in the virtual program. We've got class sizes ranging anywhere from 17 up to in the 12th grade, we have 49 students in that. So we've got, again, teachers for those areas. And if it was something that we felt we needed to look at and provide more assistance from our teaching staff, that is something we would definitely look into and see what we can do to minimize, some of those larger numbers for our staff. At this time, I do have a suggested motion. We do have a plan in place that we've been following for the last 30 days. We do need to go ahead and reconfirm that plan. So the most suggested motion would be that the Allen Park Board of Education confirm the mode of instruction, which includes the continuation of in-person learning for 4 full days per week with a half day of remote learning on Wednesdays, while monitoring the 7-day rolling average for Wayne County, utilizing the COVID Act Now site for 7 consecutive days at a positivity rate of 7.5% or higher for a return to remote instruction. The Board of Education will reconfirm how instruction will be delivered every 30 days. Thank you.
Motion.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Let's go around the horn on this. We'll start with Mrs. Lukey.
Thank you. I don't have any questions at this time. I have a few concerns that remain. The timing of the return to school, how fast it took place, but I'm not going to take issue with those today. I'm glad to see the positivity rate has been continuing to decline. And, the little things that popped up kind of remind me of the Eisenhower quote. It says, plans are worthless, but planning is essential. I said it when I meant that I trust our administrators when they said that the buildings were ready for full face-to-face return. And I think that any of the things that popped up, they need time to adjust because you couldn't possibly foresee everything, right? You have to get in. It's a work in process. So I trust, as I always have, that our administration and the staff will continue to do everything that needs to be done to help keep everybody safe. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Flipiak.
I have just a quick question about how those mentor teachers are being shared out with parents in that program. And I didn't see the office hours for the elementary teachers.
Yeah, so, and I can jump in, Mr. Darga. When parents
sign on, they get a personalized email that introduces them to their teacher. Their teacher is copied on it. And then for the elementary teachers created a welcome letter that just kind of explains a little bit about Calvert Learning and then lists the office hours at the bottom. The office hours every morning are essentially between 8 and 10 a.m. depending on the grade level. It's 8 to 9 and then 9 to 10, I think. And I also have just recently sent that exact thing out to parents of all virtual kids, because with the new LOU that we signed last week, and then of course the semester change where some people may have had prep switches, we had to update this. So this was the one from last week, and I updated it and sent out the updated one to all virtual parents.
And are we tracking the attendance of students coming to those office hours?
So not of coming to those office hours. We have the engagement pieces in there. And then I get copied on most emails if there are kids who have attendance concerns, along with the principal and the school social worker. Principal and social worker reach out to families and work with families on making sure they have everything that they need. In some cases, some of the families have decided that they want to switch back to in-person. In other cases, they've needed something, their technology wasn't working for one reason or another. And so we were able to work with the families on that and get that taken care of and get the kids on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Klein.
No questions, just pleased to see that the attendance rates so high and that numbers are continuing to drop. Also very pleased to see we've got vaccinations rolling out tomorrow, so that's awesome.
All right, thank you. Mrs. McDonald.
Okay, I do have a question about the mentor teachers. You said that an individual teacher could have as many as 49 virtual students. You said the range was 17 to 49, I believe.
That's correct.
And each of those teachers is also responsible for regular classroom duties, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so what is their turnaround time? Mr. Dargard mentioned that throughout the day, these kids would have access to those mentor teachers. But if they're busy with their own classrooms, what is their turnaround time? What could a parent reasonably expect to have happen?
So depending on what the need is, Mrs. Kelly and Mrs. Ford are dedicated to be the liaison. Mrs. Kelly is the liaison for 6-8. So she is available from morning until afternoon. And by the emails that I've gotten from her through night too, as well as Mrs. Ford. So for 6-8, they can reach out to Mrs. Kelly if it's an immediate need, like reopening a test or moving them ahead. But as with any teacher, we would ask parents to give that 24-hour to 48 hours if there was an issue for a response to an email. As you know, most of our teachers are responding almost immediately, many of them within that same day. But that following day for sure. And again, if there's an immediate need, Mrs. Ford and Mrs. Kelly 6-8 are the liaisons that are available all day.
What about for the elementary children?
The elementary, they're just reaching out to their assigned teachers.
And that turnaround, well, obviously they're not as available as Mrs. Kelly and Mrs. Ford, right? So, but I'm just wondering if they need tests open, etc. How long is it reasonable to assume that a student could have to wait?
So the elementary is a little bit different. It doesn't quite have the same restrictions in place that the high school and middle school do. So we haven't heard any issues with turnaround time. Most of them, the teachers that are doing it are 2 reading specialists at the kindergarten level, and then our specialist teachers at the grades 1 through 5, and they're extremely responsive. So most of them are getting back to parents within a couple of hours. But we've said, by the next morning when they have their office hours, they're checking their email and stuff, they're getting a response back that day.
Okay, if a student were to join now, start right at the very beginning of the program, and are responsible to complete the whole program.
We just had this, we've had this conversation a lot, or we've had this situation a lot. And essentially what is happening is, in most cases, kids are starting with kind of the welcome unit in Calvert, which is what we're suggesting so that they can familiarize themselves with the platform. And then the teachers are skipping them ahead if they're familiar with the students, because in many cases they've had these kids because they're in they've been special teachers. So aside from, I guess, the kindergarten students, so they're able to kind of take a quick look and say like, okay, I think that, you know, they can kind of come up. But if there is a question, and we just reached out to Mrs. Maynard about one of her students that came over, and she gave us reading levels and what the kid struggles with in math and excels at in math. And so Mrs. Byrne was able to place the kid appropriately. So the virtual teachers are working with the in-person teachers to make sure that they're going to the right spot. My advice is kind of like, if you don't know the kid, it's a general, just like your average student, to give them a couple of weeks of overlap from the in-person education to the online education if the classroom teacher didn't have anything specific to say.
Okay, is there like an option to, and I'm thinking elementary now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They've been remote all along with their assigned classroom teachers. So let's say they go virtual. Is there an option for them to, I guess, test out, you know, to take tests to determine where their level is?
So there's not a test out feature like in the secondary. Yeah.
Test to see their level, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
There's not a test like that, like there is in grades 6-12. And so they're trying to, the teachers are doing their best to skip ahead to kind of the content standards and the areas that they would be for that, you know, that point in time in the year.
Okay, so our teachers, our mentor teachers are trying to keep pace with our curriculum.
Yeah, they don't want, you know, I mean, they don't want the students, you know, back in October, we essentially started them from the beginning and they'd skip a unit or two here and there. But now that kids are jumping in, they're trying to do their best to say like, okay, you're at this point in the year, this is what we're going to skip you towards. And again, in math, it is the exact same math curriculum and math materials. They use the Math in Focus books. It's based on the Common Core State Standards. ELA is the same way. It's based on the Common Core State Standards for ELA, for the grade level. Calvert uses a Houghton Mifflin Hardcore product. We use a Houghton Mifflin Hardcore product as well. And so it's a little bit easier in those two areas to kind of fit them to where they need to be.
Okay, what happens, let's look at the secondary level. What happens if the student didn't finish the coursework during the first semester?
So
we say that, or what happened?
So I believe the policy was they got an incomplete and had the opportunity to work on that after, in addition to their other classes.
And what about elementary? It's not as clean cut, but if they don't finish whatever is determined for them to complete, what happens if they don't complete it?
It's a year-long course, so we've had students who are, you know, completion or who have completed or are nearing completion now, but we're not at that point where, you know, principals for students that are behind are making the same phone calls home like they would for any other kids. You know, it's been the policy in elementary though to really work with students to ensure that they're promoted to the next grade, generally at all costs. And so we haven't made any distinction between that in our virtual program and in our in-person program. So principals are meeting with parents and kids now.
Okay, so if they're nearing completion in the virtual program, we still have months to go. Do they advance to the next grade level? What are we doing?
Nope. So that the requirement, as you all know, has been waived of 1098 and 180 days. So it's the standards that they need to complete, not necessarily be in a seat for 180 days. So once they complete that grade level standard, we've been providing options to the students. We have a couple of students who are engaged in a coding class using the MIT Scratch curriculum. We have some parents who have elected to say like, I don't want my kid to do anything, like they're done, and I just want them to be happy children. And, you know, we'll go skiing and sledding and play outside and do nothing. And then others are taking kind of a blended approach, and we have book boxes available to them, and principals are working with individual families that are finishing. It is very few families, like I think it's 2 or 3 that are done. And for a couple of them, that was an intentional decision. They knew how it was going to work. They wanted to take some vacations. They wanted to give their kids a little bit of a break. They're still doing NWEA testing and all of those things. We did tell them that if there are state mandated assessments, they have to take those. So.
And that's the case for elementary through secondary, correct?
Mhm.
Did they finish early?
Mhm.
So there's not been any thought to advancing them, or is that just not a possibility?
I mean, I guess theoretically there would be a possibility, but I would need, that's not my decision to make. You know, my personal opinion, I'm happy to give it, but this is probably not the forum for that, and it wouldn't be my decision anyway, so.
Okay, but otherwise they could engage in enrichment activities through the program. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Dr. Warren.
Good news. Mrs. Flipiak and Mrs. McDonald pretty much asked every one of my questions, so thank you. I do have, I guess, one more. I knew that originally we had it set up that if you were virtual, you had to remain virtual until the semester ended. And then once the semester ended, you can, swap. Is that still the case? So like the kids that are virtual right now, they are to remain virtual until the end of the year now, or are they allowed to swap?
We're doing our best to keep them where they are for the continuity of learning and everything else, but they are able to make the move if they'd like to make the move.
Okay. I just know that messes up the classroom teacher a little bit, right? Because you're adding more in and stuff like that. So I just wanted to check on that one. All right. And then, but still now people because we've listened to Trenton's model and we realized that wasn't going to necessarily work for our school. If kids now or parents now want to move their kids to the virtual platform, like Mrs. McDonald was saying, they can do that.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Warren. Anybody else have Mr. Klein?
Yeah, just brief. A couple of teachers reached out at some point, and it sounds like subs are becoming slowly an issue, and that's across the region. That's not an Allen Park specific problem. It's we're seeing it everywhere. Is there anything we can do to give ourselves a leg up? I know we tried to move ourselves up we did that, I don't know, 6 months, a year, maybe it was a year and a half, I don't know, a year ago or so. We changed our pay rates and tried to push ourselves a little bit towards the top to generate more interest. Is that something we should look at again? Is it becoming a problem yet? Any thoughts on that? You guys would know more than.
So we just actually met this last week, towards the end of last week, with Ms. Glei, Ms. Elise Grant, myself, and Dr. Sokol. I've also had discussions with Ms. Keith and Dr. Tofelski as well on this topic, because Mike, as you stated, it's a problem. It's a problem that every single school in our area and throughout the state is running into. We're all looking at each other's districts to find out, what kind of pay rates are they doing. Some schools are raising rates. We've raised our rates. We're looking to redo our daily rate. Some schools around us have also done the thing where they've kind of done they've raised their like a signing bonus, if you will, if you put in so many days. So let's just say, for example, after 10 consecutive days, they'll get, $150 little bonus. After 15 days or 20 days, they'll get, $200-300 bonus. And that kind of establishes them with that district. We've done that also. We've not met those needs. What we're looking to do for us is actually we thought, we don't need to do signing bonus, all that. If we just raise our daily rate, right now we're right around that $100 a day. And we figured if we went to 125, because if you look at somebody else's school, like a neighbor of ours who says, hey, we'll give you $400 if you put 30 days into our district, and they're going to stay at their normal daily rate. And so right now it is eye catching for a sub to say, hey, I can go next door to Allen Park and get a $400 signing bonus. But if we raise our daily rate to 125 and you multiply that over the same 30 days, they're ahead of the game by coming to Allen Park. So we are looking, we are talking, and we're getting ready to take action. Again, Leanne is a total rock star. She runs that program for us, and she has always giving us ideas of what we can do differently, because she monitors the other schools and what they're doing. So that is on our plate. That will be happening soon. We are struggling. Fortunately, right now we're also, in kudos to our teaching staff in Allen Park. Our staff is stepping up in a very big way. When we do need subs, our secretaries are able to call out on anybody who's on a prep, and a lot of those teachers right now are helping out and taking on those extra duties. and we do appreciate, I think the staff realizes that this is a struggle for all districts. I think we've come a long way and we work extremely well collaboratively. And so therefore that's their way of saying, hey, listen, we're here for you as well.
Okay, Mrs. McDonald.
Mike, lunch aids. I know there were a couple of days last week when, well, we had a very hungry fifth grader coming home.
Two hungry fifth graders.
How bad is that? And any relief in sight? Visit. I know it was bad in that classroom, but how pervasive is it? And is there relief in sight? Are we hiring? I didn't see any new names on here. Well, yes, I did for a lunch parapro.
Right. So we've got our standing. We're constantly out there looking, for people to take on these new roles. It's a struggle. We're doing our very best to bring on new staff members. Mr. Ward, if you might have noticed, we added a big bus on the road, with huge banners on it, that we're hiring. We've got on all the marquees, we put it on our social media and everything. It's just difficult right now to find those aides. So the aides that are working with us are doing the very best that they can. As well as this was our first week back, with food service, and so therefore, as you guys know, our food service workers are dynamic, they're outstanding, and they're now getting back used to, making sure that we've got everything prepped and ready to go. Those first couple of days, again, getting back into it. We did have a couple of people that called, that again, like you said, there's some hungry kids that had come home, and a couple of parents reached out to me, and we assured them that, we apologize, of course, and that's not our norm, as everybody, that's in attendance here knows. Our food service goes above and beyond, and they're just as disappointed and upset if we ever send anybody home, back. And we did encourage our parents, if there's ever a situation that their child, goes to a lunch line and there's not enough product for them, to go to the main office. We're not above it all. We will do what we can administratively. We will send people out to McDonald's, and we'll get pizzas, we'll order things and get them delivered, so nobody has to wait for that. So again, we just need a little bit of communication, but I do not intend at all that would happen again, now that we're back into a routine.
Okay, and one more issue, and that would be with special ed. Are we meeting the IEPs, or do we have enough staff? Are our students being serviced?
Of course, yes. Yeah, we're complying with all IEPs. Dr. Sokol, as you guys know, he's all over that with his staff. His staff are, again, outstanding. And they make sure that, there's constant communication with Dr. Sokol and his office. They're always reminding each other, especially under these circumstances, of who's coming up, who has IEPs, 504s, whatever it may be, as well as do we have the staff, in place that can assist with that, and if needed, then, we contact our parents, we make sure, we've done Zooms, some people might want to, now that we're back in, a parent has the right to come in and meet with the team, but yeah, we're not missing any of those. We're staying in compliance. And again, kudos to the special ed staff and Dr. Sokol for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike, just so you know, it wasn't an issue at all with not having enough food or anything like that. The ladies and gentlemen that are working in that department have been amazing. It was unfortunately a lack of an aide in a classroom because of the sub shortage, So, but today it flew off without a hitch, and my kid ate all his food, right? So everything was good, but it had nothing to do with like there not being enough food or, those, I didn't want any of those ladies or gentlemen that are listening to feel like that. It had nothing to do with that. It was unfortunately just a shortage because we have a sub shortage too, right? So people had to try to help out there. But today it was definitely rectified, which is good.
Yeah, good.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Lukey, anything further?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Flipiak, anything further?
I'm sorry. This is not related, but I did just have a quick question regarding the vaccinations. How tomorrow's their day? Will it work again like that for the second round?
So just a quick update on the vaccines. So the vaccine schedule is handled by the Wayne County Health Department. And I know, so we wait for them to contact us. So when they contact us the second time for the second round for those individuals, they'll tell us a date and a time. And we're hoping that we'll get lucky enough to be able to pair it in with whether it's a Wednesday or towards the weekend. We do know from past experience with others going through the second vaccination that there are some side effects. And so our staff is anticipating, and we are anticipating on behalf of our staff that they may be, if they have to get their shot on Thursday, we know Friday is going to be a very rough day. We don't have enough subs. I would anticipate if I was a family member that we would operate the same way. Once we get this information from Wayne County Health and they give us the date and the time, we will then again put out our communication to our families. We want to thank our families for their patience and understanding. But more importantly, we wanted to make sure that we were able to get our staff vaccinated. And when that second round comes, we will definitely keep you updated.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Flipiak, anything further?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Warren, anything further?
I'm sorry. No, just a huge thank you to everybody out there, the staff, everybody that has been making it such an easy transition to get us back face to face. I really appreciate it. All the subs that have stepped up, all the teachers, all the staff. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Klein, anything further?
Nothing further.
All right, Mrs. McDonald?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, sounds like we've gone around enough. I don't think anybody else has anything to say. So it's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries. We will move on the agenda, Mr. Darga, to 9B, Introduction to New Business Career Technical Education Services Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. This agreement fills a void for our special education students program that we are not able to offer. Allen Park High School is currently sending 5 students for half a day of school in the fields of culinary arts, CNC machine tooling, EMT, medical assistant, and computers and office specialists. Our students attending the CTE program have continued to thrive in these specialty courses. The suggested motion that the Career Technical Education Service Agreement between Taylor School District and Allen Park Public Schools be approved for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, been moved and supported. Let's go around. Dr. Warren, anything?
No, just that it's a great service.
Yeah.
Mrs. McDonald?
It is a great program. Mike, are these students being bused?
Correct.
Okay, and we have the buses and drivers for that? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
that's the only busing we've been doing is with these groups of students. So it's working out well.
And there's just 5 of them, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Klein?
Only that I think the CNC machine tooling thing is something we should be thinking about for our STEM labs down the road so that we could in-house that. And maybe the program there would benefit those kids anyways, and so we still send them. So it's not about that as much. I just saw CNC machines, and I know that as we start to think more and more about robotics and that authentic learning cycle, that's something we want to bring into our schools. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Mrs. Flipiak?
I have no questions at this time or comments.
Mrs. Lukey?
Nothing, thank you.
Anyone else want a second crack at it? Okay. Looks like we've had all the discussion we need. It's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Mr. Darga, MASB Board of Directors.
Very good. Just go back for Mr. Klein real quick because it's exciting news. We are working with Mr. Gulasarian at the high school. Mr. Gulasarian has approached us just for that actual act of the CNC machines. He's gaining some prices. He's working with companies. And Mr. Gulasarian, as you guys know, he also has an advisory committee that is 100% behind that. So we are prepping to start gaining some CNC machines in our shops. So that's good news, real good news and exciting. Number 2, MASB Board of Directors, Region 8. This year, there are 8 open seats on the MASB Board of Directors. The MASB Board of Directors is comprised of 21 members, 16 directors elected from 8 regions, and 1 director each from the groups of 5, 6, and 7, and appointed at-large members. Directors are elected active members of school boards, and each year, several seats are up for election. Wayne County Allen Park Public Schools is included in region number 8. Each district receives one ballot, and upon majority of board approval, the ballot is cast online in behalf of the district. On January 29, board members received bios and election statements from the 4 individuals who are running for 1 3-year term for region number 8. The school board members running are currently serving the following districts: Ferndale, Oxford, Lake Orion, and New Haven. If the board wishes to discuss the candidates and cast a ballot, the suggested motion is below. That the vote for the candidate name for the seat of the MASB Board of Directors representing Region 8 for 3-year term be submitted.
Okay, so before we throw a suggested motion out, does anyone want the floor to discuss a particular candidate? Mrs. McDonald.
Having read and reread all of their bios, I was particularly impressed with Bridget McQuiston. She seemed to have a plethora of experience. Plus, she has done work with equity issues and is a big proponent of that. And she has my strong consideration. Let me put it that way.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to discuss a different candidate? Mr. Klein.
I could put my vote behind Bridget as well, but or Miss McQuiston. But I was also a little intrigued. I was split between her and Miss Dookie from Ferndale, Sandra. The two looked interesting to me as far as their strength around equity and diversity work, which I think is critical there right now. But I was really torn between the two.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. Anyone else like to discuss or tell us what you're thinking before we have a motion with a particular name involved?
I was like Mr. Klein. I thought both of them were great choices. So I would, like I said, I'd be good with either as well.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Warren. Anyone else? Mrs. Flipiak, Mrs. Lukey, either one. Mrs. Flipiak?
Yeah, I agree with Jeanette. The candidate, Miss McQuiston, I believe was the name. That was the one that impressed me the most of the candidates.
Okay, anything else, Mrs. Lukey?
No, thank you. I liked Miss Hanser and Miss McQuiston. I figured I was hoping one of you were familiar with them to, help guide that decision. They all looked impressive. I just hope maybe, you've been around so long, maybe you are familiar with someone that you would be someone that's been around would make a recommendation. I'm fine with any of them. They all seem outstanding.
Okay, Mr. Klein, something further?
No, only, is it okay to make a motion or do you want me to wait a little bit?
No, go ahead and make the motion. That's fine.
Okay. It sounds like listening to everybody, it sounds like we have some triangulation and some overlap. And so I guess I would move that we nominate Bridget McQuiston as the candidate for MASB on behalf of the Allen Park School Board.
Support.
Okay, thank you for that. And appreciate everyone taking the time to review the information. And I think Mike was right. Two really stood out and couldn't complain with either one. So I'm glad we had a good discussion on that. Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion carries. Congratulations for our vote for Mrs. McQuiston. We'll move forward to the next item on the agenda, Mr. Darga.
Donation of an obsolete school bus. The Michigan State Police recently conducted the annual bus inspection for Allen Park Public Schools. Prior to the inspection, the district had decommissioned one aging bus due to numerous and costly repairs needed. The MSP also reported the bus as red tagged, meaning no longer in service. The bus is valued at approximately $500. We have recently have been contacted by the Allen Park Fire Department in regard to possible donation of an old bus to be used for training purposes, ranging from drills with the jaws of life to a controlled burn situation. Per board policy number 3900, surplus books, equipment, and supplies, obsolete equipment that cannot be sold may, at the discretion of the board and superintendent, be donated to charitable organizations or discarded in an acceptable manner. Further training opportunities for the Allen Park Fire Department far outweigh the district's auction a bus for what it may be worth of $500 or less. Additionally, we're extremely grateful for the developing partnership with them. At this time, I am recommending the donation of the district's red tagged obsolete bus to the Allen Park Fire Department. The suggested motion would be that the Allen Park Board of Education donate one red tagged obsolete school bus to the Allen Park Fire Department as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Anyone have any comments or questions on this one?
I do real quick. I thank you so much for doing this. I was saved by the jaws of life. I know a lot of you guys don't know that. Mr. Miller does and Mrs. Flipiak does, but when I was 16, so to have them be able to help and use that to train is just absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy to be a part of it. And also, for those of you that don't know, the Allen Park Fire Department every year puts on something for the kids and the families, and they do simulations. And they've done one in a bus where it's like they kind of like smoke the room out, and they teach the kids how to like drop and roll and to find the nearest exit and get out. So for my kids, that's just been that it's just amazing. So I'm just happy to be a part of that. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yeah, I would just say thank you to administration and thank you to our fire department, city administration, whoever was handling it on their end. But excellent use of resources this way. So thank you to everyone involved. It's been moved and supported. It doesn't appear there's any other discussion. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're talking about, before we move on to the next item, Mr. Darg, I'd like to take this opportunity if we could. We're talking about jaws of life and how that is something that's important. We've had a very difficult situation occur in our district this week. Don't know if I'm really permitted. I think the name's been circulated in public, so I don't think there's a problem with it if administration would like to share the name. But in honor of that young girl that lost her life last week, I would ask everyone if we could just take a moment of silence to acknowledge her. Thank you. I'm sorry to go off script, but I thought that was important to fit in here to the agenda tonight. Thank you for putting up with it. Okay, we're moving on. Item 10, presentation. Mr. Darga.
Ms. Tiffany Keith, Director of Finance, is with us this evening to provide a brief presentation highlighting new features on the district's transparency reporting page, now accessible to the public on the district website. Mrs. Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Darga. I will show my screen so everybody can follow along with me. Okay. Can everybody see? Okay. So I'm just going to go over a brief overview of where we post our information on our website. And of course, our website is allenparkschools.com. So when you go to our webpage, this is what it looks like. In the top left corner right here is our transparency reporting tab. So when you click on that, it'll take you to a new window. And Munetrics is the company that we recently partnered with to update our transparency page. They're sort of like a data hub that takes information from the district and converts it to user-friendly reporting. These are all of the sections that we post each fiscal year. So for example, our 2021 budget would be found here. So after I do the budget presentations and they're approved by the board, this is where I would post them. And then we have each fiscal year underneath that. Personnel expenditures and operating expenditures. This is the final reporting after audit when I do the FID, which is the financial information database that gets sent to the state. That's kind of the last piece of the fiscal year. Here is the bargaining agreements or contracts for our staff. Some healthcare information. This is where you can find our audited financial statements. We have our medical information, procurement, and then expense reports, our check registers for each fiscal year, employee compensation information, dues, lobbying, any deficit elimination plan, which we do not have, our district credit card information, any out-of-state travel. We have COVID-19 information posted right here, FOIA, and then there's some other data information. So this is where you can find any transparency information for Allen Park schools. And then right here is, I think they call this a early warning system. So it's kind of like a high level like score that Msmasb gives each district, and they use several different factors to indicate their score. So as you can see, you know, it shows low risk, high risk, right? So green to red. So right now we're for fiscal year 2020, we're at a 0, which is great. And then it just gives some basic information, our enrollment, our foundation allowance, revenue, expenditures, our current fund balance, and then the total taxable value for the city of Allen Park. And that's, I mean, that's all I really wanted to share with everybody. I know it's a lot of information, but it's more user friendly, so it's easier for communities to find information. And it's you know, it's nice.
It is very nice. Thank you for the update. And I was poking around in there a little bit and found it to be much more user friendly than our old system.
Yes.
So thank you for the update on that. Any board members have any questions about the new system? Okay, it does not appear that we do. Anything else, Ms. Keith or Mr. Darga, on that issue?
Okay. No, but before I do go, I will just show everybody. I'll just go back to our webpage. If you scroll down, this is where you can find any of our bond information that we'll be posting. So you kind of have to do like a scroll, and then you'll see it right there. So it's not in our transparency page. I don't know if we're going to put a section here or not, but this is where you would find it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Darga, anything further on that?
No, I would just encourage, if you've not had an opportunity yet to check out that new page, as Mr. Miller stated, even for our community that's watching, there's just a lot of really great information on these web pages. You know, so make sure as a parent or board member, you kind of scroll through. And again, if there's other things that you you know, need to find out, feel free to contact me. And we're always looking to improve the website. So your comments are always appreciated. Dr. Tafalski, I know you usually have a couple of comments. Anything to add on this site?
I'm riveted by the financial presentation. I just like all that green that we have there, the Mr. Darga / Ms. Keith effect there, going from a yellow there to a nice dark green, a nice Allen Park green.
I do agree. I do think, you know, as Tiffany pointed out and Dr. Tafalski, but for our board members as well as our community, when you do look at that area that Tiffany has highlighted up there in the green boxes, you kind of see where we've come from in a very short period of time, and that really is impressive. So again, it's nice that we drew attention to that, and I'm ready to head on to the superintendent's report, Mr. Miller.
Okay. Before we do that, any other board members have any questions about that, or can we move forward? Does not appear anyone does. So, Mr. Darga, floor is yours.
Excellent. Superintendent's report, teacher professional development, February the 5th, 2021. Last Friday, each building was provided with some time to explore building-specific school improvement tasks. For the remainder of the day, teachers met via Zoom with Dr. Ramon Griffin for our ongoing embedded professional development. The PD focus was on how survival brain and trauma manifests in the classroom, and strategies were provided to staff to render aid to students in need. Teachers also revisited the ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experience, work that we had started back in the fall of 2019 as a mechanism to understand student behavior better during the COVID-19 crisis, as well as our own adult behavior. Lastly, teachers engaged in numerous groups of conversations based on scenarios that might occur at school and learn the ways to combat undesired behavior while also being sensitive to the needs of students and their families. Interviews are being held tomorrow For our school nurse position, we have 3 candidates. We're pleased that Terry Serwinski, which is MSN RN from Wayne Risa, is willing to serve on this interview committee and share her expertise. So we're excited to have those interviews being run tomorrow. And we have 3 great candidates, and we'll learn a little bit more about the final candidate being selected. I'm excited then to bring that candidate to you for approval this next month. We really want to make sure we also thank the City of Allen Park. The City of Allen Park is donating over 2,000 washable cloth masks for children with adjustable straps decorated with children's graphics. We certainly appreciate the great partnership with the City of Allen Park. Congratulations to the Allen Park Public Schools PTA PTS Founders Day Award recipients. An online celebration for the recipients and their families will be on February the 24th. Special thanks to Ms. Denise Crank for chairing this wonderful event. And just a reminder to all, no in-person instruction for students tomorrow. Teachers will be providing independent asynchronous lessons as a great number of district staff will be receiving their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccination. That is it, Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Darga, and thanks again for your continued partnership, developing and growing partnership with the city. Appreciate that. Okay, Dr. Tefelsky, citizens' comments pertaining to non-agenda items.
We have no citizens' comments at all tonight.
Okay, I will point out that interest in watching our meetings appears to be waning as well. I've noticed we've been stuck around 40 to 42 viewers tonight, which is a significant drop-off. So maybe it's something we said, I don't know. Let's move on to reports of officers. We'll start, let's go in reverse order. Mrs. Lukey.
Hi, thank you. Welcome, new hires and volunteer. All the best to those leaving us. My heart's sad tonight. Oh, before I go there, I want to say congrats on the athletes that get to return to play and good luck with your seasons. I think it's very cool that streaming for the sports is going to be available now for sports that are in the gym and multiplex. There is a fee for those, so look into that. It's around 10 a month, $70 for the year. MHSAA considers it like what you would pay for the cost of admission, just to sort of explain why there's that cost, because I called and asked them. My heart's just so sad, and I'd like to extend my condolences to the Cap and Elliott families. May God bless Phoebe and all those mourning her loss. I knew Phoebe, and she was so refreshing, just uninhibited and spunky, and I got the biggest kick out of that kid, and she always made me smile, and she'll be missed very much. If you or anyone you know struggling with substance abuse, looking for resources on how to handle that, I highly encourage you to reach out to Downriver Fan. I've been a member for a couple years now, and I can assure you that you'll get amazing support without judgment. You can go to their website, Downriver Fan. It's online. You can reach out to me. I could put you in contact with some amazing people that could help with that. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Mrs. Lukey. Mrs. Flipiak.
I'd like to echo what Ms. Lukey said about Phoebe. I know my stepdaughter knew her, and it is such a tragedy, but so wonderful to be part of a community and a school district that's surrounding the family with love and food and money to help them in their time of need. And I am proud to be a part of this community, even in this great time of tragedy. I'd like to welcome the new employees, also the Founders Award recipients. That was one of my last pre-COVID events that I attended, and one of my first on the board here. And I look forward to being able to go back to an in-person event in the future. Thank you to Ms. McDonald for digging deeper with some of those virtual questions. I thought those were really great tonight, and I appreciate you bringing those things up. I hadn't thought of those things, and So thank you for bringing up those points. Thrilled to hear about the staff doing the work with trauma and ACEs. I've had similar training and it's so eye-opening. And also good luck to the staff tomorrow getting their vaccines. It's an exciting day. I'm glad we were able to get, I guess, kind of at the front of the line once the health department opened up with this. It didn't, we didn't get into next month or anything like that. So that's amazing, and good luck to them tomorrow. And I hope everyone has a great, safe, and wonderful evening.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. Mr. Klein.
Others have said it better, but it's difficult when a school loses a child. It's the wrong order of things, right? Young people aren't supposed to lose them. So just thoughts and prayers to the whole Elliott family, and it is nice to know there's a community that's supporting. I think Ms. Flipiak, you said it last time, and I noticed it again today. We have a coach volunteering at the in wrestling, and that seems to be a trend. We've seen a lot of kids coming. They're not kids anymore. Young adults coming back who were graduates who come back and give time to the community. So it's we're grateful for that work, and we thank you for doing that work. And I guess just thank you to all the people making school work right now. Right, it's families that are getting their kids there, and teachers that are making it work in really difficult situations. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Mrs. McDonald.
I echo what has already been said, with the addition that I would like to thank our administrators for taking it upon themselves to visit with and take food over to our grieving family. I think that was outstanding, and I appreciate you doing that. I also appreciate the great partnership that is really developing much more strongly than I've seen it in years with our city resources, the fire department, city hall, etc. And I think that's going to help to be stronger and better all the way around. Hopefully we can start getting some kids involved in voluntary experiences in that domain as well. Good luck to our staff with the vaccines tomorrow. I know you'll do great. Congrats to the Founders Day recipients. Welcome to our new hires, and thank you and farewell to those who are leaving us. And again, stay safe.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Dr. Warren.
I think everybody's pretty much said it all. But same, go Jags. Our sports are back on. I'm super pumped about that. I'm usually there cheering them on for at least a game or two per season, per sport. So I'm bummed I can't be there. I have definitely been a part of the MHSAA website as well, especially when it came to competitive cheer. And I was usually gone for some of their competitions when my goddaughter was there. So I'm super pumped to be able to watch them since I can't watch them. So thank you for that opportunity as well. My condolences absolutely go out to Sophie's family, friends, and everybody that she's touched. I didn't know her, and my heart breaks because just like I think it was Mr. Klein said, that's not the order it's supposed to go in, right? So without a doubt, I appreciate the whole entire community coming forward, stepping together, doing food chains, doing gift card. They sent out something for gift cards at Lindemann, and we were able to send some in. And just absolutely thank you for the support for this family. And my condolences are absolutely to everybody's lives that she has touched. Vaccines, yes, tomorrow, which is awesome. Dress warm. I drove by there because it's so close to my house, and it looks like there is a line outside. So just in case, please dress warm because you mean a lot to me. And I don't want you to get sick getting in line to get a vaccine to not get sick. So dress warm. Congratulations, of course, to the new hires. I'm super pumped about that. And all the Founders Day recipients. And just as always, thank you so much to the teachers and staff and everybody that has been involved with this crazy time, getting the kids back in school and helping us out in every single way. I hear every day, you know, oh, so-and-so was called to this room and so-and-so was called to this room. And, you know, just because of the lack of shortage. And huge thank you to the subs that have stepped up and helped us out as well. So thank you guys so much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, just one thing for me, and that's my heartfelt condolences go out to the family and friends of the young student that we all lost last week, tragically, unnecessarily. I appreciate the comments from Mrs. Lukey regarding substance abuse and help. It's important, I think, especially since this last year's gone on, it's probably more important. But I do wish for all of their family and loved ones peace at this time, as hard as that may be. I do wish them all peace. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Support.
Okay, been moved and supported. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.